Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting, riveting, thought-provoking episode of Two Kobolds in a Trench Coat, where this week we will be discussing the rules lawyer. Another interesting trope we've come up with. Grand reveal there. But yes,
Not grand at all. It's just me quietly going.
I mean, this is the kind of level of production we have here.
Yeah.
But yes, rules lawyers. What are they? Do they do? And are they a disruptive force in your game? I think they can be at times, depending on what kind of rules lawyering they are. I mean, rules lawyering to me is the person that goes, I think you'll find rules as written, it's so and so, and it kind of can be disruptive and ruin the flow of a game by doing that. I mean, that's just from a negative point of view, negative kind of connotation of when you hear the word rules lawyer, you just think it's that person that's sat at the table going, actually, I think it's because a lot of people now, a lot of tables tend to pull the old rule of cool. As long as it's not too much game breaking, it's fine. But then there'll be that one person at the table that will be like, well, actually, you shouldn't be able to do that because of X, Y, Z reason. And you're like, but thematically and story-wise and for the character, it actually worked. So we're not going to go rules as written. And we all understand and we all know that sometimes rules as written, it has to apply at some point, doesn't it? Otherwise, it's just chaos. But there are moments where you can be like, no, I'm going to forego this for this, just to see how this plays out, good or bad.
Yeah. So the definition of a rules lawyer, as I just literally thought, you know what, I'll just have a quick little Google and see what it says. So a rules lawyer is a term used to describe a participant in a rules-based environment who attempts to use the letter of the law without reference to the spirit, usually in order to gain an advantage within that environment. Commonly used in wargaming and tabletop role-playing communities, often pejoratively, as the rules lawyer is seen as an impediment to moving the game forward. So basically, the idea, as you said, is that somebody is using rules as written, the letter exactly as written, in order to get things to go a certain way. Now, sometimes that can be them sort of saying, you can't do that because of this reason. Or it can be, actually, if we do it like this, then yes, it can. And no matter what way you look at it, it's a crappy thing to do, especially if you're going in and we've all made a joke about this. Actually, DM Shubil does fucking force damage.
It's become that very much funny sort of anecdote-y sort of piss take thing where it's like, oh damn, I don't even know I've got dark vision, so I can be able to see through all forms of dark vision. This is magical dark vision, but I've noticed that my character in his backstory has this really magical dark vision that can see through everything. That sort of level of snark and that sort of thing.
So rules lawyering is really quite disruptive because, first off, as a player, you should not be interpreting the rules at all. You do not get the final decision. You can query if rules can be used a certain way. So, for example, when in season 1 of Homebrew Havoc, Kiva cast one of her spells, instead of having it set itself up as a wall, she had it set itself up as a ball around her and around Daddy to protect them from the outside. Now, rules as written, that's not how you use it. That's not how the spell works. However, there is nothing in there that states that the spell must be cast in a certain way. It doesn't state that it can't be used in that manner. So I asked, could I do X, Y, Z? The spell says A, B, C, but I would like to try X, Y, Z instead. Would you allow me to do that? So that's not rules lawyering. That is a legitimate query.
You're bargaining for something. I'm like, look, I want to do this. Does it fit with what that says?
Does it fit with your interpretation? A rules lawyer player should only pull out the actually card if it's blatantly wrong. Like,
yes, yeah.
Okay, well, I've just thrown a fireball. I'm going to roll 8d. That's pretty
mega.
That's a big.
12
That's
is
a
heavy
really,
duty.
really. That's a big. That's a big. It's quite an obvious one there. You know, nobody.
Hmm.
I have had that discussion. Is it 68 or 8d6? And you know, sometimes people get the numbers the wrong way around. Actually, DM, could you
Fully,
double check? Could you
yeah.
double check that, because I'm pretty sure it's 8. It's 8d6, not 68.
Now, to be fair, if you're a spellcaster, there is a lot of spells that you can probably get mixed up with, and you can be like, "I think this is 8 so and so," and they'll be like, "Actually, it's D4s or it's D6s or whatever," and you're like, "God, yeah, of course it is." You know, but sometimes it's sometimes you lose track because if you loads of spells and you're casting shit all the time, it's so many dice you're rolling. You're like, I can't remember if this is a 6 or an 8. But if you're going to 12 territory, I think you've over-egged it a little bit there.
Yeah,
You're like,
I
hang on a
might have
second, nothing's a 12.
maybe sort of exaggerating a little bit there, but
Yeah,
that's just an example. So knowing the rules is one thing. Knowing them back to front is one thing, you know. But when you're a player, you have to understand you don't get to make those decisions about what other people or the DM can and cannot do in their campaign in
yeah.
terms of rulings like that. So in my games, my ruling is if someone has a major injury, you cannot heal it just with magical healing. You need to reset bones first, or, you know,
Medicine check, really, isn't it?
medicine checks, check that,
Is it
you know, if
medicine
they've
survival? Is it medicine or just
it's
medicine?
medicine normally.
Okay.
I do, depending on what they're doing, because if they're trying to reset a bone, I might have them do a combined medicine
Okay.
dex check.
That's quite fun. Yeah.
Combined checks, again, very rarely implemented, but are in the rules. So
Ooh.
yeah, are in the rules, but very rarely used.
PM, I think you'll find combined checks are in the rules.
They are. They are in the rules. But so I don't allow magical healing to heal a broken bone unless that bone has been set first.
In the words of Marvin Gaye, when you get that feeling, you got that magical healing.
Yeah, magical
But
healing.
so when you consider rules lawyers, do you consider there's good rules lawyers? Because I think there is some good rules lawyers out there, especially
There
if you have a
can
bit of
be.
a chaotic table or you have new players that can maybe be able to be like, look, you know, to an extent, I'll put the
So
asterisk in there with new players and the rules lawyer because I've seen some help, and I know you've experienced some hinder.
I think there is a fine line between what I would refer to as a rules library
Right.
and a rules lawyer, because a rules lawyer doesn't necessarily think about why their behavior is disruptive. So they just jump in and they try and argue the point. A rules library is a person. I don't know if this is an official term. This is just how I refer to them. Rules library is someone who knows the rules really, really well, but who only quotes them back if the question is asked.
Yes. If you've had a question like, does anyone know how, I don't know, Featherfall works? Or
Yes.
does this happen if I cast this spell? And you can be like, actually, if I remember, it does X. And then they'll be like, right. I said, but I always sometimes follow up with, you might want to check up on that just in case I got that wrong. Because
So,
you can read it from very distant sources and it's interpreted differently. So always go check it out for yourself.
so at my table, a rule, I have a rule, a house rule, which is if a player is asked a question about a mechanic of their class or their race or whatever, nobody else should be answering me except that player, unless the question is addressed to the whole table. So, does anyone know this? Or can anyone remind me of this?
That's what I was just about to say. Can
Question.
someone remind me? Blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the question is directed at the DM, which most people will normally say, DM a question, and then they'll ask their question. Only I should
Yes.
answer that. If anybody else answers it, I mute them.
Yeah. Well, it's because
They are not the DM. They were
exactly.
not asked the question. A rules lawyer will jump in regardless of who has been asked. And
I
it's
think it's
really
this.
fucking annoying. It's really
Yeah,
fucking
because
annoying.
when you utter the words DM, is it so and so? You are literally, this is why I think that's a good way to do it. Because if you go, is it so-and-so that gives license for everyone to jump in? But if you're going DM, is this, I don't know, am I within 60 foot to cast this spell? Or does this area affect blah, blah, whatever you want to ask. As long as you're, DM so-and-so, that implies that you're talking directly to the DM, not the other players, not anyone else at the table, the DM. So you're right in that respect. Anyone else who starts chiming in is like, whoa, hold on. Who's running this game? You or me? Because if you're running this game...
If I need your help, I will ask you.
Come on. Yeah.
I have a distinction between a rules library and a rules lawyer. I would call them a librarian, but that kind of suggests that they actually just manage the books and things. They look after them. But a library is actually a repository of information, which is what I consider these people. So they're literally a full library of information.
I think that's a better terminology to use than a rules lawyer, because then the two get kind of mixed up, and people who are trying to be helpful get painted with the brush of the DM. I'm just going to put it in, chime in here, that sort of person. And you're like, no, this is actually trying to help.
So the individual that I would describe as a library is generally someone that will not butt in. They will not give their input unless asked, or unless it's opened out to the table. They might come later and question it, but they won't do it openly. They don't. The problem with rules lawyering is that it can be seen as incredibly disrespectful to your DM. You are basically throwing their efforts in their face. You are pulling them up on mistakes publicly, and in some ways you are belittling them. And I have had it done to me. Now, you know I hate metagaming. I hate it. I can't stand it. And I particularly hate
passion,
it.
Listeners, with a passion.
With a passion. I despise it. And
yes.
You know that I particularly hate it, because we've had this discussion before. I particularly hate it when I can hear you metagaming, when you are audibly calculating and I can hear you going, okay, well, this is that type of NPC, which means they have X hit points and that is their AC, which means if we do this, this and this, then we could take them down. That is a surefire way for me to up their hit points and give them a shield or healing potions.
Yeah,
rules lawyers are the kind of people that would be like, he should be dead. No.
Yeah, precisely.
It's called homebrew, fucknut. It's called homebrew. Eat it.
Because, I've heard it when you're in combat and someone will miss and they'll go like 16, miss. You go, okay, that might be higher than 16 then. We know it's 16 or higher. If 16 misses, it's going to be 17 or higher.
17 or higher.
And
yeah.
17. You're not going to be like, well, hang on a second, let me get my, the DM's guide out and blah, blah, blah. No,
get in the monster manual and take a look.
Yeah, precisely that sort of thing. Whereas if you're making like a shit, guys, remember, did you hear that? I missed on a 16. So we need to hit higher here. That kind of thing's okay. But where you're literally going out of your way to go, I know this is a Shadow Mastiff, for example. I know its AC is 13, 12, whatever it is, and it's got 40 hit points. So I know. But that might not be the case, because as you've done and I've done as well, you've spiced up a little bit. You change things around. You make it tougher. You add hit points. You add abilities. You add things it can do, like multi-attack or something like that. Don't expect the thing that you're facing exactly ripped out the book, because it's 9 times out of 10 it isn't.
Especially if you're playing in a homebrew world, because the creatures are not going to be the same necessarily. They may take inspiration from what's in the book, but they may not be the same. And a rules lawyer often cannot handle, in my experience at least, I won't say this is, but in my experience, a rules lawyer often cannot handle an excess of homebrew. Because
it's too much of the unknown for them to try and rules lawyer.
It makes them feel like they don't have control. It makes them feel that they don't know how to use things and people to get their best interests, And I've found that my experience with rules lawyers has always been they flounder in homebrew environments, in heavy homebrew environments, which my games are. So when I had something of a, I won't say a rules lawyer, but definitely a heavy metagamer and someone who liked to butt in an awful lot. I won't go out and just say that out and out a rules lawyer, because there were only a few instances where they outright were like, well, I would rule it like this. And it's like, yeah, well, it's not your game.
When it's your game, you may rule it like that, but until then, sit there and be quiet, please, because it's my game.
I've turned around and gone, well, I've actually turned around to this person and said, well, that might be how it's written, but rule of cool, I'm going to allow this to happen.
DM's ruling says X.
DM's ruling. Yeah. So I won't say I've necessarily had a rules lawyer. I've definitely had somebody who was towing that line, and they struggled with some of my homebrew because I said they were a heavy metagamer. I could hear them counting. I could hear them doing the maths, and it was very frustrating. And because of that, I would often switch things up. Like, well, I had planned to just have an average bandit in this encounter, but instead I'm going to give you a bandit healer. There we go. I'm going to switch them out because they hadn't engaged in the combat at the time, but I could hear them doing the maths in the background. I was like, no, I'm not having this. I'm going to switch it up because they don't know.
Yeah,
and it
one
really
of these bandits
annoyed
knows
me.
magic now.
So it was like my experience of rules lawyers has always been that they don't do very well in homebrew environments because they cannot go, actually, rules is written. It's like, well, that's no, because this is homebrew. So how can you know the rules is written? You've never seen this before. But it's similar to the thing. It's like, yeah, it's similar to that thing, but it's not that thing, is it? So yeah, my experience has always been they don't do so well in heavily homebrew environments. They thrive, absolutely thrive, in environments such as module play.
Yes,
so they will read the
be
module beforehand. They will study the module beforehand. They will read up on everything and anything in the modules. So if you're running a module with a rules lawyer, be prepared for them to know what's coming.
So
honestly,
the thing I was going to ask is, thinking about what you just said there, about they flounder because it's heavily homebrewed, do you then find, and I've never experienced this, and this is the thought that popped into my head, would they then look to potentially rules lawyer the players because they're like, well, I know what a ranger does, I know what a druid does, I know what a warlock does, and so am I able to then pivot and go, well, actually, you shouldn't be able to do that because of blah? And have you ever experienced that where they've gone, okay, I can't rules lawyer the game, but I'll rules lawyer the rest of the party because I can get away with that?
So this,
to some extent,
toes into another thing, because obviously you asked earlier, is there a difference between a good rules lawyer and a bad one? And I referred to the rules library, who is someone who is helpful, who is basically like a compendium for you to reference whenever you need help. There are instances, or have been instances, where someone starts off in that position, that helpful position, helping new players, but who then starts making demands outside of their prerogative. So yes, it is possible for a rules lawyer to attempt to rules lawyer players, not just the DM.
Yeah.
I had an incident where one of my players asked another player, by the way, does your summon, can it fly? Now, bear in mind, this person wasn't asking the problematic individual, they were asking someone else. The problematic individual then butted in and said, yes, but only if it's not being ridden. He wasn't being asked. He wasn't the one being asked.
For no reason.
Why? They will often butt in with rules, and they will give their interpretation of the rules and will speak over the other players. And yes, it is possible to rules lawyer other players, because I want to cast magic missile at those two, at that guy, one at that guy, and they might try and say, actually, no, you want to spread them out across 3 different ones because you can't.
Oh, they're starting to give tactical advice now, are they?
Tactical advice. It starts off as helpful tactical advice, but then it turns into things like, you can't do that unless you do this, that, and the other, or you've only got that, so no, you can't do that, even though the DM might say, actually, I'll allow it. Like that spike ball that I did in Homebrew Havoc.
That would definitely been a no-no then.
That would have been a no-no for a rules lawyer. Things like, hey, if I wanted to improve my chances of making a jump, could I take off all my equipment and just carry the end of a rope, because then I'd be lighter, I'd be more dexterous. But no, rules as written, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Except a DM might rule, actually, I like your thinking, but you must understand that if it goes horribly wrong, you're not wearing armour. So
yeah, exactly.
It's going to hurt.
I tell you what, one rule that always catches me off guard, just to make a point, is the one where you sleep and you, in your armour, you get exhausted. I always forget about that one.
Yeah.
Some DMs will insist on it and be like, well, you wear an armour. It's like, well, I went to sleep. I was like, well, if you're going to sleep in armour, exhaustion. If you haven't slept in your armour, your AC is 11. And you're like, oh, shit, we're getting ambushed by bandits and my AC is 11. I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't bother with that.
No.
Especially if I'm running a campaign at higher levels. So after a certain amount of time, I always say, well, actually, by this point, you'd have got used to sleeping in your armour. You'd have found a position that you could do it.
That's a fairer one to say, I feel.
Yeah. So early on, if they're wearing heavy armour, which not many people do, let's be fair, at level 1, very few people wear heavy armour. But if you're wearing something like leather or hide, or even just a breastplate,
you can get away with that.
You can get away with it because, a breastplate, people often forget a breastplate is literally just the front. A cuirass is the whole thing, front and back.
Yes.
But a breastplate is
just that.
Just the front. It's literally just the front. So actually, if you sleep on your back, it's not going to cause a problem. Even if you sleep on your side, it's not really a problem. It's just if you start putting on things like fan braces and pauldrons and spolders and the tassets and all of those things, then it becomes a problem because you've got stuff poking you in places that you never want to be poked.
And also, I want to meet the maniac who sleeps face down in a breastplate.
I mean,
yeah, he sleeps no, this is how I sleep, guys. Yeah, just face down in the campsite, on your stomach with a breastplate on. I'd be like, you're an absolute lunatic.
You're an absolute lunatic. Why are you doing this? I mean, we've already established that Blaze sleeps sat up in her armour.
Yeah, that's true. Well, she's an elf, so she doesn't really
She's
sleep.
An elf, so she doesn't sleep, she trances, so it's a different thing. But she sleeps sat up. And the thing is, it is possible. It's not comfortable, but it is possible. And you can get a decent night's sleep like that.
You're not going to wake up totally refreshed, but you'll be okay, I feel.
This is why I've implemented something called a well-rested bonus in my games. So if you sleep in a bed and you do the whole thing of I get into my pajamas and I'm going to sleep in a nice bed.
Put my nightcap on and my nightcap.
Yeah, my nightcap. I'm going to get into my... Oh my God. One of my players had a fucking unicorn onesie that they insisted on wearing. And I was like, okay, you do that. Yeah, you can totally have...
I'd like to know how that can be rules lawyered. Just having a bit of fun like that and going, well, my character has a unicorn onesie. Well, actually, I don't think. It was like, well, you don't know my fucking inventory, pal. So shut up.
Actually, I think you'll find that No, this is that whole sushi wouldn't exist in the medieval times argument, which is bullshit. Because sushi dates back to
feudal Japan.
It dates back to something like 300 BC. The very origins of sushi are super, super old.
It's just fish and rice.
It's what it is. So what it is, sushi is not the raw fish. Right. Sushi references the rice.
Okay.
Sushi is in reference to the rice because you can have sushi that doesn't have any meat in it at all.
Yes, you can. Yes, I forgot about that. Yes, you can. So it's all about the rice then.
It's the rice. The rice is the important bit of sushi. Now, originally, sushi was made differently. So the modern, like, finger sushi, fast sushi as it is,
yeah.
that's from like 1800s. I can't remember exactly which. But before that, there was a precursor to sushi, and it was made slightly differently by, I think it was fermenting the rice or something like that. So it was the same thing, but it was different. It's basically like how certain types of pie, like the Cornish pasty, started as a full miner's meal. Like you had literally
Yes,
had
yes, it
like the
was.
meat, potatoes, vegetables on one side, and then you had like a fucking fruit pie on the other. And now it's
Yeah, and they
literally
put a little
just
bit of jam on the end to let them
yeah,
know which way it was, because they couldn't see
yeah,
in the mines, in the tin
yeah.
mines
So,
of wherever
but
these
now,
Cornishmen were.
yeah, but now if you look at a Cornish pasty, it's just the meat, the potato, the onions. But that's not how it started. It started as a miner's pasty, basically.
Indeed.
Um,
Indeed.
and it develops, it changes. So sushi did exist, which is why this
Medieval
argument.
environment, it
Yeah,
must exist. It's like it can't not. That's a weird sort of like, statement to make.
it's a very weird statement to make. People rules lawyering in that manner. That is really going out of your way just to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but if you start rules lawyering fantasy food, you've got issues.
Yes.
Do you know what I
Yes,
mean? If
you
you start
have got
rules, it's like,
issues.
well, I
There
think
is a
maybe you need to go away and maybe play your own game.
there's
Because you're not
oh
playing mine anymore.
it's like it's not historically accurate. I think you'll find
Right.
a samurai, a pirate, and a cowboy all meeting at one spot would be
Not
historically
historically.
accurate. It
Yeah.
would be.
Oh, it would be.
That's
It
the
would be, yes, because
it would be.
that's right.
Spanish pirate, the whole Spanish piratical era, the samurai
Wild
era,
West.
and cowboys all overlapped.
And then you'd throw in like the Victorian era, that kind of, or maybe even before then, that sort of era where they were in their like high collared outfits. That's in the same sort of period. Yes, it is historically
Yeah,
accurate. You're right.
yeah.
Yeah. But
So you could have those
yeah,
four altogether, but people would be like, oh no, they would never have met. Yeah, they would never have met in real life, but they could have because they overlap. Just like fucking, like,
yeah,
just
because
shit. Time doesn't fucking
it's
stop just because
yeah,
you think it's a different part of
because
the
it
world.
doesn't matter to you.
It's,
It's not your part of the world. Yeah,
but
but it's
then
true
there's
though. I
that
mean,
whole
that
thing.
is true. Yeah.
Then there's that whole thing of, obviously we're moving slightly off topic here, but that whole thing of like historical accuracy wouldn't have had the blah blah blah. Yeah, but they also wouldn't have used leaf bladed swords. They also wouldn't have
Well,
had
yeah.
magic wands. They also wouldn't have had
I'm not walking
elves.
into a dungeon killing goblins. That
Yeah,
doesn't,
no.
that's not.
You're worried about historical accuracy and you're running around killing dragons. Who do you think you are? Some fucking George?
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, that's the problem. When
It
you go into
predates medieval.
that level of rules lawyering where you're going, this is not accurate. It's like, do you know what you're doing? We are sitting in a room playing make believe, and you don't quite get it that you've walked into a room and there's like zombies or ghouls or whatever else, and you're going, no. I'm like, can you not suspend your disbelief for 5 minutes?
Apparently not.
Or go, this is not historically accurate because character X is whatever. And they're like, no, that's not historically accurate. I was like, you do realize this is made up. This is not reality. And maybe you need to go away and look at your, like, I just feel that by that point, you're like, you have no imagination, go away.
See, my thing is, sushi wouldn't have existed. This is just woke bullshit. A fucking wizard did it, you stupid ass.
Yeah.
A wizard did it. There you go.
And that's
a fucking
whenever,
wizard
that's
made
the problem
it so.
with all of this stuff, this rules lawyering, or any sort of, dickheadish type tropes, is I always go back to the point where it's like, this is make believe.
I think there is a sort of like a link between rules lawyering and that whole historical accuracy thing. I wouldn't say that the two are necessarily a perfect circle, but there's certainly a Venn diagram going on there.
Definitely.
And, well, that wouldn't have really happened in that. Yeah, but then again, crossbow is still technically not superior to a well-trained longbowman.
Because the whole reloading issue is quite cumbersome.
Mm-hmm,
Unless you have one of those things that I think the Italians had, where they could just wind it up.
the crank
Might
one.
be the French.
Yeah,
They
were
French
fun.
or Italians had that where it was like, I think it was Venetians as well. Venetian sailors had that one where they could just crank out really quickly so they could keep firing it. But anyway,
so
as a history lesson for another day.
I had this discussion with a rules lawyer once. Oh, well, a crossbow would be superior anyway because it's a blah, blah, blah. Actually, a crossbow was designed specifically so that you didn't have to have any training to use it. They just wanted to get as many people firing shit as fast as possible. Unfortunately, the average length of a crossbow shot is significantly shorter than that of a British longbow. And it's also significantly less powerful. Do you think something with that sort of wingspan on a crossbow is going to have enough power behind it to shoot as far as a longbow? Which, let's face it, an unstrung longbow can be 8.5 feet long. That's unstrung.
Well, yeah, exactly. And hence why they said that these,
I've got one in my fucking craft room. Pointing upstairs. It's upstairs. It's up there. I have one.
Longbowmen would start like when they were children to start learning to, because the draw strength of a longbow, you'd have to practice and practice and practice to get that strength. And that's why most of them were like big, broad dudes, because they were like, big Welshmen. These longbows. Like, fuck that.
Not even kidding. The longbow we've got upstairs, it's an ash. It's made of ash. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I cannot draw it. First off, it's too long. It's too tall. It's actually designed for someone of 6 to 6.5 feet tall.
Right, so it's a huge thing.
I am just scraping 5.5. I just scrape. Well, actually, I'm not even scraping 5.5. I'm 5'5". So, there's no way I could do that. The draw weight of it is significantly higher than what I can tolerate, because that bow was purchased by someone who, quite frankly, was a lot stronger than I was. My husband back in the day was really big into his archery, and he had all this ash longbow is his. It's a gorgeous thing. Unfortunately, he ripped his shoulder out while moving carpets, and he hasn't been able to fire it because his shoulder's basically fucked now. But I can't draw that. At least I can draw it partially, but I can't get a full draw because it's too heavy. The draw is too heavy. I actually did better. This is going to sound weird. I did better with an asymmetrical horseback bow.
Or like a very sort of Mongolian style kind of horse archer. Yeah.
I did better with those than I did with an actual
because it's a lighter skirmish bow, isn't it?
Yeah. So when I get people that are like, well, no, you can't do that because rules say this, or well, it's not historically accurate, I find it's usually coming from the same person, or the same type of person at least.
Yes, because you would know full well if your house was under siege, you'd be getting the crossbow, not the longbow, because you can't fire that thing, but you can pretty much fire a crossbow.
Oh yeah.
They'd be like, here, take this peasant, fire that.
Fire that, yeah.
Over there.
Now, it does take longer to reload a crossbow. I think there was something they did something like a really well trained longbowman could fire off something like 5 or more shots in the time it took for an untrained crossbowman to fire a single bolt. And it's bolts, they're not arrows. Artwork that shows them with full blown arrows in them really annoys me because they're not. They're bolts.
You have to place a bolt into it, and if the cross bit, that breaks, the whole thing's useless. Whereas you break your string on your longbow, you can at least restring it. You might be out of action for a little bit, but you can restring it. But that the whole front bit breaks the crossbow. That's it. It's useless.
Yeah, it's just.
So, I think you'll find DM.
I think you'll find DM.
Yeah, I mean, here, sorry, to continue the bow chat, I've just Googled it. A medieval crossbow could shoot 2 bolts per minute. This is much slower than a skilled archer who could shoot 12 or more bolts per minute. So you're going shot, reload, shot, that in a minute. Shot, reload, shot. Yeah, so...
When you think about it, if you're thinking about the movement, especially if they've got a back quiver, it's a single movement, and then you just sort of... Because you're pulling back. to where you would need to be to just grab another one and go. And even if you're doing it from the hip, it's a round motion.
Or
a crossbow is such a pain in the bum.
In some ones, they've just slung the arrows in the floor, and they just pick them up from the like standing upright, and they just go boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, any rules lawyer who's coming at you with that kind of like, it's not historically accurate, it's just no, not today. No, thank you.
This is not historically accurate that your magical airship has cannons that can fire this time.
The fact that you're in a make-believe world where there's dragons and you're telling me something's not historically accurate, I think that says more about you than me. I think it's like, so in what history period that exists do you know that there's an airship that's held aloft by magical means that can fire eldritch cannons?
Yeah.
Tell me, because I don't know when that is. And if that's a period of time, because, there'll be some conspiracy theorists out there. I'll be like, oh, it's a time that's, that's been covered up, the shadow government or whatever shit that comes out.
The shadow government.
Do you know what I mean? It comes out with that sort of shit. Like, if you look at the photos, this was stuff, and this was all a hidden period of time that was, whatever. Anyway, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like, really, my make-believe airship, like I said, that fires eldritch cannons is hard to fathom because it's not historically accurate.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
So just veering back into the rules lawyer territory rather than the broad topic of people just being douchey with rules. Because historical accuracy.
Aren't they one and the same, hand in hand?
Look, we're back on that Venn diagram again.
Yeah, that is true.
But the biggest issue that I find with rules lawyers is that they just don't know when to shut up.
True.
My experience has been that they are so convinced of their inherent rightness. I am right. This is how the rules are written. This is how they must be read. They are so convinced that they are right that they don't actually stop to consider how disruptive their behavior has been. If you go onto any of go to the D&D horror stories subreddit, go listen to Crispy's Tavern, go listen to Crit Crab. There are rules lawyers all over the fucking place who argue with the DM or with other players for 30 or so minutes of a session because they're convinced that they're right about a ruling. There is only one person at that table who can turn around and say, this is the ruling, that's it. And that is the DM. If you disagree with what the DM has ruled, you can speak with the DM after the fact. You shouldn't be doing it at the table. You can turn around and say to them, DM, I'm not sure that's right. Can we talk about this after the session? Or can we talk about this at a later? But you don't sit there and argue your point. Because, you might be right. But also, your DM's trying to get the game moving. He's trying to,
There's always a time for that, yeah.
If your DM was wrong, if they did roll those, they rolled 8d8 instead of 8d6, all they have to do is, can we check something? Because I'm pretty sure that was wrong during the session. I just want to double check it with you because I kind of feel like it put us at a disadvantage, or I feel like this could be impactful going forward. Okay, yeah, sorry, I was wrong. Thanks for not being a douchebag at the table. I'll sort it out next session. Then at the next session, the DM can say, hey, guys, look, I made a boo-boo last time. This was kind of wrong.
Yeah.
If it's retconnable, you retcon it. If it's not, you just say, okay, so I kind of fucked up there, so I'm going to give you guys some free healing potions or whatever. And
exactly.
You don't have to, even if you are right, even if you are sat there and you know for a fact that you are right, don't be a rules lawyer and just sit there and argue it at the table, because it takes away from the immersion. It steals game time from people, They're not there to listen to you and DM having an argument. They're there to play a game.
Stealing everybody's time, and there'll be like that moment where everyone goes, I'm not going to be next week. Yeah, what do you reckon? Nah, not available. Sorry. Because if I have to sit through another couple of hours of this shit, no thank you of
might go
DM
mad,
and rules lawyer, rules lawyer and arguing over something petty. It's like, can we get on back to just rolling some dice and having a bit of fun and a laugh? No? Okay. Bye then.
All right, won't be coming back then. Meh.
Yeah.
It's you. If you truly believe that there has been an incorrect ruling, don't fight about it during the session. Don't just say, actually, DM, rules as written, this blah blah blah. If they've made a mistake, they've made a mistake. Something that I said to someone, I mentioned that I have had someone that came out and, occasionally butted in as, being a bit disrespectful. I actually turned around to them and said, look, I need you to not do that again.
Polite warning.
Don't interrupt me while I'm doing this, or, don't butt in with rulings and stuff when I'm trying to make a ruling myself. It undermines me. It tells me that you don't trust me, which is hurtful,
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily need to be corrected in front of everyone. I will own up if I've made a mistake. If I've messed something up, I'll turn around and go, guys, look, I'm really sorry. I made a boo-boo last time. So from now on, going forward, we're going to do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean,
any of my tables, I've turned around and said, I made a mistake. I will own that, because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody fucks up. You don't have to be a dick about it and start throwing the rule book at people. In fact, don't throw the rule book ever, because it's heavy. It hurts.
Yeah, and it will hurt. It's the thing of, as well, I think recently when I DM'd a game, I got do you know when you're hasted?
Yes.
Does that incur, like, you're hasted and you can run past somebody, the attack of opportunities and stuff?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not sure whether, if you're hasted and you're moving that quickly, would they be able to? I said no. The rules turned out to say yes, you could. But I was like, well, I'll know for next time. But in this instance, I've said no. Because thematically for the game, I thought it was fun for my bad guy to miss the person that was hasted. It made more of a dramatic sense to me. I was like, all right, I've flubbed the rule, but who cares?
It's kind of like a monk. If you build a monk properly at later levels, they get like 90 movement speed or whatever. Or can get up to 90 movement speed. But they can still incur. Are they invoking it? Not really invoking it, are they? They're incurring it.
No.
An attack of opportunity.
Yeah.
So that would have been my thought. And when you said that, my brain immediately went, okay, well, monk moves fast. How fast can a monk move before you can't get an attack of opportunity? It doesn't exist. So that's how I sort of go through things. If basically, I don't know, I compare it to another rule.
And I just went, hasted, you're kind of like, I imagined you a bit like the Flash. You're hasted and you're just moving super fast. I was like, there's no way this guy would be able to get an attack of opportunity on you.
Yeah.
Like I said, turns out we discussed it afterwards and it was like, oh, actually you can. I was like, oh, really? Fair enough. Well, if that comes up again, then we know how it's going to fall. But for this moment, it didn't work out that way. So no one died, or there was no tears before bedtime about it, and no one had the boo-boo face.
I actually calculated, because obviously if you dash, that's considered like a sprint, isn't it?
Yeah.
I actually calculated what your movement speed would need to be in order to sprint Usain Bolt's speed. I was really sad, and I actually calculated it.
What would it be?
It would be 48.5 feet.
Wow, Jesus. Gideon with 45 foot of movement straight off the bat is getting quite close.
Yeah.
But
that would have been at the lower end. If you're going towards his world record, you're getting in for some pretty weird numbers there. I have it written down somewhere, but I can't even. It's just ridiculous what it was. Hang on, what it was. Oh, there we go. So 60 would hit you at Usain Bolt's world record. For his lower end, you only need 38 point whatever it was. But yeah, there's a feat that I have in my games that allows you to sprint 85 feet in a single turn.
Wow. It's like advanced mobile, isn't it?
Advanced
Something like
mobile.
that.
Yeah. It's actually a levelable feat, so something that you can upgrade over time, and you get faster the more you practice it. But regardless, if you're ever not sure, it's not up to the rules lawyer to make that ruling for you.
No, that's always the DM's discretion.
It is DM's discretion. So if you do happen to have a rules lawyer at the table and you're not sure, you can, as the DM, turn around and say, well, I understand that you believe the rules say this raw. However, as it's my table, I'm going to rule this.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's this way.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine.
It is fine to do that. You can do that. You can turn around and you can tell the rules lawyer to shut up. You are allowed to tell them to shut up. Because your table, your rules. Obviously, if you are moving the goalposts and changing the rules and changing your mind and, not making it clear beforehand, actually, I fucked up, I want to do this, then the DM becomes the problem. But if you've just got a rules lawyer that's there gifting their wisdom without being asked for it.
Yeah, exactly. You're just
I say wisdom in the most air quotey sense.
Air quotey thing. It's just like, I'm just going to drop this knowledge on you guys and, take it for what it is because I'm the oracle and I know all and I see all. That sort of attitude, isn't it?
You know what's incredibly frustrating? When someone's rules lawyering, but they're rules lawyering from an earlier edition.
Oh, so they've got it totally wrong. And you're like, hang on a second.
Or my favourite one.
Your rules lawyer is failing.
Or my favourite one, they can only rules lawyer the original content and not the expanded rules. So if your DM is using rules from, let's say, Tasha or Xanathar, and your rules lawyer only knows the core rules, that's annoying.
Yeah, it gets.
You're not even on the same page then.
No, and that's when it becomes embarrassing because then I guess it's one of those situations. Do we tell him he's rules lawyering the wrong thing here, or do we just let him carry on and let them carry on? No, just carry on like that. Yeah.
I often find that just saying I'm using the rule from this book that states that as an alternative. So thank you for your input, but I am aware. That's my favourite phrase, actually. I am aware of this rule. I think it's stupid. That's my favourite. I think it's dumb. So no, I'm not going to do that because it's stupid.
Thanks, but it sounds shit. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is how it's written in the book, but it's bollocks. So I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I never this is. I always hear this as well. I have seen DMs do this, and I agree with it. Yeah, I don't like the way that's written. I've just decided to do it this way instead because it's more fun for everybody. And I think the general consensus, if everyone's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, then there's no harm done. If it's the rule that's not correct to the rules lawyer.
So I always make sure at the beginning of all games, whether they're one shots or what, I will always send people a list of things that I do at my table. So, okay, I switch up creatures so they won't be exactly as you say, as you think they might be. That bandit might be stronger than you're expecting. My rules for critical hits, which is full dice plus a roll. I give any alterations to rules, so healing magic is not a cure-all. I basically go through all of that at the beginning of all of my games. If I'm running a game, if I get new people joining, I run through it all with them. I go through all of these things. I'm like, okay, so this is different, this is different, this is different. You might read that in that book. If you read the rules, you might read it in that book. I don't do it that way. And I make it clear at the beginning. That way, if I do end up with a rules lawyer coming round and telling me, actually, DM, the rules in the book state, I say, actually, rules lawyer, if you refer back to the document that I handed out at the beginning of the fucking campaign, you would see that I clearly state that's bullshit.
Well, yeah, because then you could be like, well, actually, edition 1, first edition, this said blah, blah, blah. It's like, now you're pulling from God knows where now, and it's getting a bit silly.
It's like people say, oh, you can't change the rules. Yes, I can. It's called an amendment, dear. The fucking Constitution of the United States has a lot of them.
Well, that's the thing, is like with these games, it's again, coming back to this, it's make believe. It can be whatever you want it to be fun. And okay, there's a set of rules that, make sure it doesn't get too anarchic or chaotic, but those rules are flexible as well. So it's not the end of the world.
They can be changed as long as your DM is consistent with any changes that they make to the rules. There is no reason for anyone to butt in and rules lawyer. By all means, be the library, be the compendium, be the walking biblioteca.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be a dick about it. If you are asked your opinion on rules, offer it. But don't assume that just because you've read it a certain way, it's the correct way. Because everything's up for interpretation. Like, even the way that some spells are worded is ambiguous at best.
And I sometimes think that's intentionally done.
Yes.
To be like, your game, you tell me how it works.
Yeah. Hey, you want a flavor? Like, they never actually specifically tell you what a spell's effect looks like down to the last detail. Like, they might say, what's Spectral Guardian or something like that.
Yeah.
It is described, if I remember because I had this on Blade and I was all like, what does this actually look like? And it's vague enough that actually it won't say anything. I can't find the spell now. Guardian of Faith. That's what it is. I can't even get the title right. So, Guardian of Faith. A large spectral guardian appears and hovers for the duration in an unoccupied space you can see within range. The guardian occupies that space and is invulnerable and appears in a form appropriate for your deity or pantheon. It could be a fucking shoe bill.
It could be. Could be anything you want it to be.
Could look like a fucking shoe bill. It could look like a quill pen. Don't question it. It could. It could look like a ball of floating water, or it could just look like a swirling cone of air. There is nothing in there that
says it's got to be.
When you think of spectral guardian, kind of the first thought that pops into my head is animated armor.
Yes.
But obviously that's not going to be appropriate for all of it. I'm not going to lie. After the whole shoe bill incident with Blade, and I don't know how originally Blade's spectral weapon was actually a bossed shield, like the Romans used. That was what it was originally going to be. But you guys, the joke was made because the shoe bill was used as the token. And I thought, you know what, fuck it, it's a fucking shoe bill now. Shoe bills are her favourite animal. Blade's favourite animal is a shoe bill.
Hijacked your spiritual guardian or spiritual weapon or what it was.
Yeah, so it turned into a fucking shoe bill. And after that, my brain went, my guardian of faith can no longer be the massive boss-wielding shield bearer motherfucker that you associate with, like, Roman legionnaires. It's got to be a giant shoe bill with a boss on its head.
Yeah, I think that's probably a bit more intimidating, personally. This
shoe bills are scary,
this weird-looking creature, this bird, like, stalking towards you
That's why.
Like, headbutt you with this big beak.
That's why. Spoiler alert! At the end of the side quest arc. That's why I made a point of saying when Lolly's like, "There's nothing left except a spectral shoe bill."
Yeah,
because it's fucking scary.
It's still there. Yeah, it's scary, and it doesn't. It doesn't go anywhere.
A rules lawyers can't tell you how spells should look because it's left open to interpretation, and that's the same for a lot of things. Getting back on track now. A lot of things are open to interpretation because it's creative. It's role play. It's about making it yours. It's like my wizard's magic missiles were all shaped like owlbear feathers because this was in Icewind Dale, she had the Owlbear Whisperer secret. So all of her magic missiles were shaped like owlbear quills, specifically owlbears. Her firebolt spell would fire off like a firework, so it would leave a little stream of like psh, it would look small and just psh, and then just go psh, and
that's it. Yeah.
Wow. Because the rules are flexible and open to interpretation, there are very few rules that can't be changed. In fact, I don't actually personally know of any rules that can't be altered or changed. If they don't suit your table, if they don't suit your table, they don't suit your table. And as long as your DM is open and consistent about the changes they've made, you have no right to be a rules lawyer and say that's not how this works, because that might be how it works for this DM, for this table.
Yep, precisely.
If you disagree with a ruling, don't be a dick about it. Don't argue for half hour, 40 minutes. Just let it go and talk to them afterwards. I think this was wrong.
Yeah, I have a difference of opinion, but that's fine. It's your game, your table, you're the DM. You ruled it this way. I think it's this way, but maybe next time we can sort of meet in the middle, and that's that. That's
yeah.
A communicative, pleasant discussion on it is better than going, I'm just going to talk across you mid-game in front of everybody else because clearly I'm superior. And in some sort of way, main character syndrome coming back.
My knowledge and understanding of the game is far superior to yours.
Yeah, it's 10 times what it was last time we played. But no, I think that'd be a good opportunity to end it there before we start going off on another tangent about medieval crossbows or whatever else comes to mind. But yes, we hope you've enjoyed that little sneak peek behind what we consider to be rules lawyers. If you have experienced rules lawyers, to contact us, get in touch with us and tell us your rules lawyer stories. If you are a rules lawyer, tell us why you do this. What's the point? Let us know.
Why do you do this to your
some sort
tables?
of deep-seated trauma that you need to discuss? Tell us. Maybe you've experienced a rules lawyer and now you feel like become what I hate, the rules lawyer. It's up to you. Let us know.
Yes, indeed. You could do that across our socials. We're over on the Blue Sky, we're on the Tumblr, we are on the Zitter, we are on Mastodon, and you can also find us over on Ko-fi and on our own website. And then, generally speaking, just find us wherever you find your podcasts. We're on pretty much all of them.
Pretty much all of them. Come check them out. Yep.
Come check them out.
Rattling into season 2. Go check out season 1. We will probably be back in the new year because we're getting to the old Christmassy time. So
yes, indeed.
You probably won't see another episode of Two Kobolds till 2025, would you believe, into the far future.
Yep, indeed. So that's probably going to be about 2 weeks' time, folks. Hope you can survive that long. Might be a little bit longer, depends. 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to take a little break over Christmas and New Year, mainly because I'm going to be looking after an ancient cat for Christmas and New Year.
There you go.
So this ancient kitty is going to require my full attention on top of the new puppy.
There you go.
My goodness. I'm going to die this Christmas. I'm going to be killed by things with claws.
This may well be a one-person podcast when we come back in the new year. We'll see.
I hope to survive, but fingers crossed, folks.
But enjoy your Christmases. Stay safe out there. Have a wonderful new year. And we'll see you in 2025.
Happy holidays, folks.
Goodbye.